Right. Evening, everybody. It's been a while since I've done one of these. It's been about a month, I think. 3 weeks to a month. Um, yeah, so, um, been a while. It's interesting what's happened in the last, since I last did my last live stream and did my last set of videos with the Tour de France has happened. Geraint Thomas has won the Tour de France. The first test between India and England has taken place, and that could have gone either way. I did feel that during that test match, Joe Root and Virat Kohli both made captaincy decisions that, well, were a little bit what you're doing. England, especially within English cricket at the moment, he's on trial. Obviously, he's a fray allegations. This fight he got into last year, about this time last year. I think it's not looking good for him. I don't know what will happen if he is found guilty. Whether he will have a career going forward with England and County Durham as well in the county championship and then other tournaments he plays on like the IPL. I don't know what the future holds for him. I think he's going to be guilty. Personally, myself, one of the guys that's had the charges against him dropped and has been found not guilty. The other, this doesn't look good for Ben Stokes. And that's a problem for England because he hasn't been great since the incident when he has played. Yes, he had a good spell in the Test match in the second innings against India with the ball. He had that spell where he skittled out, I think, got 4 or 5 wickets. He did his job. Any other Test match, that is just a good spell by a good bowler. You take Sam Curran out of the England side, England lose that Test match, regardless of what Ben Stokes does with the ball, because the run total that England got would have been a lot less, and I think India would have easily, got over the line. Sam Curran is much maligned for his slight lesser pace, but hey, he's a very accurate bowler. He's young. He's still developing. He's still, developing his game. He's getting quicker as well. That's the positive. He is actually getting quicker. He can get wickets. He's very accurate with his bowling. He may not be the fastest fast bowler in the world, more like fast medium, but hey, he's accurate, and he got 4 wickets in the first innings against India. Obviously, the transfer market's a big thing, and how Tottenham haven't signed any players, and Man United are struggled to sign players as well. We can debate why the transfer record hasn't been broken, like Neymar, but club records have been broken by many clubs. Chelsea have broken a club record for the Bilbao goalkeeper. Courtois has gone to Real Madrid. There's been a lot of moves. That are big in this transfer window. The season is now upon us. Was it the right decision by the Premier League to bring the Premier League transfer window forward? That's a debating point. We'll see how effective it is, going forward. Tottenham haven't made any signings. Yeah, they've signed Kane and other players to long-term contracts. That's fine. But if you don't strengthen your squad and you just keep the same bunch of players together, they're going to get older. There's going to be injuries in there. There's going to be fitness issues in there. And I'm surprised that Tottenham haven't really made any moves at all. Really surprised. They have a strong squad. They still showed up at that FA Cup semi-final when they lost to Man United, showed up all the deficiencies Tottenham do have. They were ahead in the game, they were winning the game, and then Man United took over. And they didn't have a plan B. That's the issues within Tottenham. They need an extra player or two, an extra body or two in the midfield, maybe up front, maybe in defence, maybe another goalkeeper. Doesn't matter what it is, they need a body or two in there. And the other clubs around them, I would say, except Man United, have made those moves. They've gone, right, okay, we see that we have an issue here in this position. So Burnley, having both goalkeepers injured at the moment, brought in Joe Hart. I don't think Joe Hart's going to, be the number one. I think, Pope and Heaton are clearly better than Joe Hart, looking at their recent form. Both were in the England, reckoning. Pope got called up to the World Cup squad. Heaton was in the reserve squad in case anyone went down injured. Joe Hart nowhere close to Southgate's squad for the World Cup. So that just shows the pecking order. He is there as an emergency signing. He will be there for a season. He will get moved on. But Burnley realised we have an issue in goal. They sign a goalkeeper. Liverpool signing, Alisson. Obviously, Karius had ousted Mignolet as number one. Obviously, he had the howl in the Champions League final. But Mignolet gets selected by Belgium World Cup, doesn't play a minute. I think, again, Liverpool realising that goalkeeping was an issue, went and got a goalkeeper. Man City, have strengthened their squad. They got Riyad Mahrez. It took 2 years to get him. But they did. Hello, Casey. Yes, I am back, and yes, I have. Obviously, if you watched my video before this, I've added some hockey jerseys. Work is going fine. It's been hectic, to say the least. I've got a day off tomorrow because the motorcycle's got to have an MOT. So, I've got to take a day off, which I don't want to do, but I have to do. So I lose a day's worth of pay, but it's been good. It's been very, very good. It's just energy sapping. Yeah, no. Firstly, I started a new job and I wanted to focus my energies on that. And secondly, I did need a bit of a break. Doing 8 to 12 videos a day, and some of them take a lot of research. And there's a few videos I'm going to do tomorrow and on Saturday that are going to take a lot of research, and that's why the whiteboard comes in handy. And really, one of my videos took 4 hours worth of research that I did before I got the whiteboard, before I got the setup, before I got the laptop stand, before I made my own, things like that. It did take some time. For a 10-minute video, I did 4 hours worth of research, and that takes it out of you. Now that I don't have that time, we're gonna just have to, it's more of a, this could be the channel's going to change somewhat a little bit. We have to see, obviously, how we do. We've gained some subscribers this week from all over the world. We've gained subscribers from Australia, Canada, New Zealand, the UK. So we're getting there. I haven't done a video for like 3 weeks, and I've gained. Well, I did video I think 2 weeks ago, but I haven't done a live stream. Uh, um, you know, the teams I support video is still up there. It will be not in a general playlist. It's just go back about, I would say, 2 months when the whiteboard comes up. I do a video on that. It's still up on the channel. It hasn't disappeared that I'm aware of. There are a few videos I had to take down for various reasons, do with various bits and pieces. But no, the video that I had, the teams I support, still up there. Hasn't gone anywhere. The teams I support hasn't changed. But a lot's happened in sport, since I've been away. If you could call it that, I've not been on holiday. I've been working. uh, I mean, a lot has happened. Obviously, the World Cup finished. I did all the videos on the World Cup, and I think I only missed like 5 games. That did take it out of me doing that much video content. Really, watching up to 4 games a day is exhausting, and I'm not gonna lie, I did my best on that. And that was draining, and it was so hot. The heat wave we have had has been 2 halves, and it's, upstairs in this room, heat rises. And there was one day in the heat wave where I thought I'll get a digital thermometer, get an app, and do a few bits and pieces. And I took the thermometer off the garden wall in Fahrenheit, and I worked out at about 46 degrees actually inside, because my house is an oven. And to try and do videos in 46-degree heat with 80% humidity is insane. And it was still 30 odd degrees outside. It was actually cooler going outside, standing in the sun, than in my house. That's how bad my insulation is that good. But yeah, I started a new job. I thought I needed a little bit of a break. I needed to focus on, on basically, on the work and getting settled there. Is what it is. What do you think of Joe? He plays for He played for Bilbao. Now Bilbao haven't been as good in recent seasons as they were, let's say 5-6 years ago, and they were getting to the Europa League finals with Forlan and Llorente up front. The Basques and Bilbao do make good goalkeepers. I cannot pronounce his name. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce his name, because that would just butcher, his name. But I think Courtois going, it shows that there are still issues at Chelsea. The way that the Conte management saga after, how will he stay? Will he go? He won 2 trophies in 2 years. That has obviously still got an effect going on. The dressing room, there was clearly divisions in there. To let Courtois go, a goalkeeper who got to a World Cup semi-final, played every minute of Belgium's World Cup campaign. He didn't have to play the fourth place playoff. But he was that good for Belgium throughout the entire tournament that he played every minute of every game. Very surprised with what's going on at Chelsea itself. The saga of getting Sarri in and Conte out, Conte possibly taking legal action, issues with Abramovich's visa. Chelsea is not a happy place and hasn't been a happy place for a long time. Here comes a hailstorm. Oh, great. There are big lumps of ice coming out the sky and ruining my garden. It's just nice as the weather, isn't it? With Chelsea, though, I think Alisson, yes, he did play at the World Cup. This new keeper for Chelsea didn't. So Alisson's already got his eye on competitive football already. He's had a little break, but he's been playing all the friendlies since he's been signed. He's played very well. Obviously, Brazil were average at the World Cup. I wouldn't say they were great, they were average. They were better than 4 years ago, but actually didn't get as far, ironically. But I think the whole Chelsea situation itself, as a whole, I think football as a whole has got an issue. I really do. This transfer window has been a strange one. There have been some big moves like Ronaldo going to Juventus, surprise move. He did one out at Real Madrid, but Juventus have been, how Juventus have been using their transfer market. They've been getting a lot of players on free transfers, and to suddenly blow their transfer record on an aging player. And Ronaldo didn't, apart from his hat trick against Spain, he wasn't great at the World Cup, and Portugal were very flat. So a lot of Portuguese players moving is really weird because they didn't actually set the world alight at the World Cup. They really didn't. They were very average. And for a team that won the Euros 2 years ago, it's what it is. I haven't followed the transfer window today. Honestly, I'm not. I've gone off football to the point. I love the World Cup, and I watched almost every game. And I missed like 5 games at this year's World Cup. So I really put a lot of effort into that. It was a great tournament. The VAR was there. There was going to be controversy. There was a few controversial decisions with the VAR. I think football has lagged behind in the technology. But let's go through some of these questions because there's a lot coming up, and I'm trying to read all your comments. So Courtois I did hear about him putting a post on Instagram. I also saw him putting a post on his Twitter feed, with his medical, which hasn't been taken out. His Instagram one, yes, I have heard. And you know what? This is where I think I've got a lot of friends who are Chelsea fans. Some of them have been lifelong fans, well before Abramovich, since before, Chavsky era, as I call it. I've got subscribers who are Chelsea fans. There's a fellow YouTuber, Kemal, who, we have a good, YouTube relationship in a sense, and he has invited me to a game at Stamford Bridge, and I'm more than happy to take him up on that. But there is a minority of fans at Liverpool, at Chelsea, Everton, West Ham. It doesn't matter, what club it is, and this is what's infuriating. The guy has said thank you for the support that he's had while he's been at Chelsea. And to get abused. Now, obviously, this is a decision between Sarri, the new manager. Obviously, Conte's that dragged on too long. Sarri's coming. The World Cup's been going on. A lot of World Cup managers of the national sides said, "Can you please get the transfer business done before or after the tournament, not during, because we need our players focused on the games that they have, the job in hand, which is to win the World Cup." That is really that is a hailstorm and a half. That's just lovely. That's just what I want on a Thursday evening, to have hail bounce off my roof. Ugh. I mean, why did United, sign? Forget his name now. What's his name? He is Lee Camp. That's his name. Here's the thing: Romero did get injured before the World Cup, and it looks quite a serious injury. And he was not Argentina's number one. Hence why Argentina had some real interesting goalkeeping this World Cup from Caballero and Armani, with some horrific goalkeeping. Honestly, a lot of Rob Green got signed There's a lot of older goalkeepers out there who still feel that they are good enough to play. And I think another reason, I don't know what's going on with United and their transfer policy, because Mourinho seems to be complaining a lot about, United's transfer policy. He's doing a Conte. He's basically biting the hand that feeds him. Um, United's transfer policy, again, Camp is an average goalkeeper, as in he's standard, he's experienced. There's obviously a lot of young players in the squad. Um, United have had an issue. I would say De Gea didn't play well at the World Cup. He only saved one shot. Out of all the, I don't think he even made a save. I think he didn't play well at all, and that mistake he made was similar to Loris Karius. Oh yeah, Lee Grant, not Lee Camp. Lee Camp was, oh God, there's too many Lees and too many average players. Lee, look, there's too many average players. This transfer window has been weird. There's a lot of old goalkeepers like Rob Green, like Lee Grant, getting signed. They do have a use. You need an experienced player in the dressing room, even if he's not a leader on the pitch and doesn't play every game. You need that kind of experienced player who may be trying to do his coaching badges as well. Let's not forget that. Around the dressing room, when you've got young lads or goalkeepers who are low on confidence, if it's a goalkeeper or a defender low on confidence, experienced players are always handy. I don't think he's going to play a lot of games. He'll probably play in the League Cup until Romero's fit and the FA Cup. If Romero's injury is more serious than first thought, this could be a sign that De Gea may be on the way out in January, for example, because the transfer window has been brought forward. De Gea did not play well at the World Cup. Romero couldn't play at the World Cup because he got injured just before. So yes, United do have a goalkeeping issue. De Gea, whether he's the best goalkeeper in the world, I don't think he is, personally. He's a good goalkeeper. He's very, very good. I don't think he's the best. And people will disagree with that, and that's their right to do so. Courtois, is he the best goalkeeper in the world? Probably not. He's brilliant. He is good, but I think there's better goalkeepers. Yes, I can do a history of Inter Milan and the New York Giants. I've been meaning to keep doing these team history videos. American football is not really a subject that I know a lot about, but I have watched every Super Bowl for the last 13 years, so I'm sure I can give the New York Giants a fair history lesson, I suppose. Inter Milan, yes, I can. I've been asked to do a lot of videos on Italian football over the last 6 months, so I'm more than happy to look into Inter Milan and look into why they play in blue and black stripes. Similar to Atalanta, there's not many teams that play in blue and black in the striping. So that's an interesting one. And you've got to look at some of the English teams' away kits and home kits and things like that, and that's where a lot of the Italian league colours come from. But yeah, I'm more than happy to look at Inter Milan. Their period in the 60s where they dominated Italian football, and they had their own style of football, which is seen as parking the bus football, get a 1-0 lead and defend and kick lumps at the opposition. It was effective. So the Grande Inter of the 60s is a period of footballing history a lot of people don't realise outside of Italy existed. They were the dominant team in Italy. They dominated what is Serie A for a better part of a decade, with a couple of other clubs like Cagliari getting in there and nicking. Nicking a title in 60, I think it was 65 or 67. 1st September, yes, I am going to be at the Bracknell home game against Swindon. I will be there. Yes. I will be at the Bracknell Ice Rink on the Saturday game. The away game I can't do this year. Things have happened are outside of my control, with some of my friends having a little bit of a tiff between each other. But I am going to the Bracknell Swindon home game, my end, which be kind of cool. I've missed hockey. I've just missed it. As you can tell, my playoff beard has gone, my long hair has gone. So I think it's the first is the Bees one, and the Swindon one is the second. I believe. I could be wrong. I'll have to double check that, but it's like 3 weeks away. But I am looking forward to it. The fixtures can be changed at any time, which is an absolute pain. But I am looking forward to it. It is sad though that obviously Cardiff, the Cardiff Fire, can't compete at the second tier level this year. They didn't win a game last year. They were gifted an away overtime loss because the game was cancelled, and they got 2 overtime losses. 3 points on a season, pretty horrific, if I'm honest. But yes, I will be at one of the two games. It is possible that I could go to the Swindon home game, but it's just getting there and getting back, and it's the travel really is a problem. But I'm more than happy to I'll be definitely down the Bracknell home game, watching that and enjoying it. And there's been some improvements to Bracknell's ice rink. Yes, and so yeah, the agreement between the various, and this is complicated, and it's to do with how the old NIHL was was going before. You had a promotion relegation system. Uh, and D side got relegated, and the winners of the National Division Two North went up. The reason why Fire went down was it was different. They weren't going to get any relegation. They just couldn't. They could not ice a team. They couldn't attract enough players to Cardiff to play, and they had money problems. Yeah, the Bees have had. There's been several Bracknell Bees YouTube channels. And yes, people are asking for technical people to record highlights or do match coverage. My friend Dan used to do it on the old Bracknell Bees TV, and he was a sponsor of the team. I don't know if he's going to be sponsoring this year. They've done a lot of rebranding, and there's a lot of things going on that even I don't know about. But a lot of the Bracknell Bees TV. That's my mate Dan and his company filming that. The EIHL, yes, that is the one on Free Sports. That is the top tier of British ice hockey, the successor of the Super League. I think there's 11 teams this year because Edinburgh Capitals, obviously, they you know hit the brick wall financially, and there were rumours that Hull were going to replace them, and then that Peterborough or Bracknell will be discussions as well, and all this stuff. Hull are the most likely team to go and make the 12th team in the Elite League in the next couple of years. I can see Bracknell and Peterborough also being approached by the Elite League at some point to join the league. Looking at what Bracknell are doing with the scoreboard and the netting around Bracknell, the Bracknell ice rink is being refurbed bit by bit. It is what it is. I think the Basingstoke Bison, this is going to be their last year. I know the women's team, when I was working at the beginning of the summer as a farm labourer, my manager, his partner played for the women's team at Bison. They're now playing at Slough. They could not be guaranteed a whole season in the women's league. They couldn't. The Basingstoke ice rink is falling down. I'm not going to lie about it. I did watch a game there last year. The footage of the warm up is on the channel. The Basingstoke rink is in a really, really poor state of affairs. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The Basingstoke rink is really in a shoddy state. Can I see Basingstoke finish the season? I hope so. Otherwise, it'll be a 7-team league, and we can't have that, and that will cause chaos. No, I didn't watch the Swindon Spitfires, unfortunately. I, to be honest, I haven't really watched since the Tour de France has ended a couple of weeks ago. I haven't really been following that much sport. If I'm brutally honest, I've been following obviously the cricket, the first test. We can discuss the first test if you guys want to talk about cricket for a little bit against India. But honestly, with the Tour de France ending and Geraint Thomas winning that, I sort of enjoyed having a break from sport for a couple of weeks and just focusing on work. It was kind of a nice change to have, is just have a little break and just relax a little bit and just focus on work and getting home and just having a break, because this does take a lot of time and a lot of effort. And I put effort in with the whiteboard and the setup that we now have, and making my magnets and getting the colour pens, and I've even got me pointer. And yeah, one of a few subscribers have asked, am I still uploading? I said, yeah, I just needed a break. This time last year, I was very similar. I took a break out when I first started the channel, and I just sort of lost a bit of focus. The Basingstoke Bison, we can do videos on that all day long. We really could. I honestly don't know what the future holds for the team. I do think they probably move. There are rumours that Winchester will get a rink built. There are rumours they could go to Gosport. They can't share a rink with another team in the league. That would be impossible because there's not enough ice time. The team they've put together is basically rejects from every other team in the league. Bracknell have just gone. Let a lot of their players go, and basically, Basingstoke is just Bracknell and Swindon rejects. And I'm being kind to them. The players are decent, but they've basically they're outcasts from the teams that were rivals with them last year, and they've actually got a weaker side. And there's a reason for that. Who will want to play for a team whose future is uncertain? You may be the most successful team on the ice and at your level. If you're basically playing for a team where the roof can fall on your head during a game, that's not going to entice you to stay for another year. It doesn't matter how successful you are or how good your coaching is or the owners, how much they invest in the fans. If your arena is unsafe, you don't see a trainer get injured. I do think they're going to have to look at probably bringing a team up from Division 2. They're going to have to probably look at maybe getting Telford to drop down from north to south. They may look at the old EPIHL teams and go, look, can you form a league again? Yeah, Bison are really in a mess. They cannot attract. This season is going to clearly be their last. It would have been nice to see them keep their team together as much as possible, a winning combination. But the coach wanted out. He's now with us. Both their imports are now with us. Their goalkeeper Skins is now with us. A good, I think, 5 of their players have, gone up the M3 and said, look, we're joining Bracknell. They've got a couple of Bracknell players back the other way. I don't think the Bison will be a punch bag. They have got some good players, but the core of their winning team has just gone 15, 20 miles up the road to Bracknell. And admittedly, yes, some of those players like Antonov were originally Bracknell players who went to Basingstoke because Basingstoke had a good core and they strengthened it. And I understand players do move around. It's very difficult in British ice hockey not to play for pretty much every team at some point. You look at the match night programs; they say that this player has played for these teams. He played for both teams. I look at some of the programs that I've had. I'm giving a lot of programs away, but I've got a couple of programs, and it does say I've got a couple of programs here, and one of them is Sheffield and Peterborough, and there are players on these teams, the opposition, who at one point played a game or two for Bracknell. It's insane, but that's the nature of British ice hockey. It's very, very. How do I put it? It's a close knit family. I can see, but I can't. Maybe not London. Maybe not that high. I can see Basingstoke still being competitive. They have a good side. It's just not as good as last year or the year before. And yes, the rink situation I think had a big part to play. The uncertainty of the team's future has had a big part to play in whether or not the team can continue. If they can find a home, and do what London did or Romford, should recall them, and get a rink built, or Streatham and get a rink built, they can survive. If they have this uncertainty says to players, this team ain't going to be around much longer. Do I really want to not be sure if I'm going to get paid? Because even the imports, they need to get paid. If they're not sure they're going to get paid, they're going to they're going to move on. When Bracknell were going through their problems financially, and basically they've been there financially before as well, players will move on then. And were asked, if they could, leave. And that has happened. Players have actually asked, for a release on the contract. And it's not just an ice hockey thing. This is any sport. If your club or your team has an uncertain future, be it financially or with a high, or arena wise, it doesn't help to sign players or retain players. That's what's happened with Basingstoke. They don't have a long term plan in place to replace this rink. And this issue has been going on now for a good 3 to 4 years. Planet Ice were aware that the rink had structural problems. They allowed it. They didn't fix it at the time, which they could have done over the summer period when it was found in 2014, 2015. It really got bad in 2016, and it's deteriorated rapidly ever since. They had plenty. They could have just shut the rink down for the summer season, so anywhere between April and August, and fixed it. Not many people go ice skating in the summer. Summer is summer. A lot of people go abroad. A lot of people go to the beach, go outside. Ice skating is not really a summer sport. They could have fixed the rink in those summers. They chose not to. They chose to maximise profits over safety. The deterioration has been rapid, and that has an effect when you want to retain players. It's simple. It's a no-brainer. And I feel sad. I feel sorry because when Basingstoke have played against Bracknell, the rivalry is intense. Both clubs have a linked history. Um, you know, I don't know what happens to Basingstoke after the season. I understand, you're asking a lot of ice hockey questions, but I think other people, may want to hear about different sport. But the ice hockey, I know a lot about it. I've seen the deterioration in Basingstoke's rink, and I think it would be a shame if they were to fold for whatever reason, or have to, take a year or two out, or have to move. It is a shame because they're one of the historical clubs of British ice hockey. They had an amazing season last season in difficult circumstances. They had a great team, but the ice rink is just gaffer tape is holding it up, and scaffolding inside and outside. It's not great. But am I interested in football? I used to play at school. I am a Blackburn fan for my sins. It's not in my top 5 sports. I did a video about 2 months ago listing my favourite sports and my top sports, and football doesn't get in the top 5. The World Cup did, in my mind, it was a great tournament. I there were issues with the tournament. Let's not um, forget about that. There were issues going into the tournament and during the tournament for various reasons, and but it was It was the highest scoring World Cup for goals per game, the second highest scoring final of all time. The VAR, yes, okay, we can debate the VAR and how effective it was or what needs to be improved. And I've done a lot of videos on that, and every game when I mention the VAR again and again, when I was doing my match reviews and we're looking at whether VAR was used and at what time, it was really interesting. The amount of people commenting on the VAR going, it was a 50-50 or whatever. It needs to be fine tuned. I'm surprised football has taken this long, considering it's the wealthiest sport in the world, to bring technology into the game. It's only in the last 4 years they brought goal line and now video referees into the game. Rugby, cricket, and ice hockey, American football, they've been doing it for 2 decades. I am so surprised it has taken this long for FIFA and football or soccer, depending on where you are in the world, to go, we need to use, a video official. We need to, get this technology in the game. Yes, there are some issues with VAR, but this World Cup has re-piqued my interest a little bit in football, but it's still not my favourite sport. It used to be when I was a kid growing up. Yes, it was my favourite sport as a kid. But as I've got older, I've enjoyed it less. No, it's fine if you're new. I haven't posted apart from today doing this live stream in the previous video, I've taken a little break and I've come back because it was just too hot to do videos. It was too hot to go video film outside, and because you just melt, and it's too hot inside. No, it's not a problem. Just if you're unsure on any of my views, check out all my playlists. I've got playlists from rugby league, rugby union, the NHL, which is obviously ice hockey, which is British ice hockey, and other ice hockey related stories. I've got motorsport in there, I've got tennis, I've got cricket, I've got cycling. There's a lot of sports that I do cover, and feel free to look at any of my playlists. When you say like any favourite players, most of my favourite players no longer play. If you look at some of my player profiles that I've done on cricket players, my favourite cricketing players, my favourite 11, I've sort of got halfway through and I never really finished because the World Cup came about. They're all ex, they're not current. Um, my opinion going into the new season is I do think VAR is here to stay. I think the Premier League have made a mistake by voting against having it this season because they could have, fresh off the World Cup, look at how the World Cup, the mistakes and the good things and the bad things about it, and given it a full season to improve it. I think they made a really bad mistake. I think trialing it in the FA Cup only at Premier League grounds was a mistake. I think the way the FA did their trial was wrong. The Bundesliga, the German Federation, did it very, very well. Obviously, the Australian A League Grand Final where it failed. Okay, it failed once out of how many games? I think it's here to stay. I think it needs improvement. Of course, I think the time taken, how it's communicated to the TV audience and the fans in the stadium. I think that needs to improve. Comes to the season ahead, my team have already played a game. I'm a Blackburn fan. We drew 1-1. So this is where I think the Football League, so Championship, League One, League Two, and the non-league, so the conference, all those leagues that start a week before the Premier League. Yes, they have more teams in them. But originally when the Premier League started, it was bigger than it is now. It had 24 teams. It was the same size as the current Championship, League One and League Two. I think looking ahead at this new season, yes, the transfer window has been brought forward. Does that mean that at some point they will look at the winter transfer window in January and go, do we get rid of that? Or do they look at other sports like the NHL with a trade deadline day, whereby from beginning of the preseason all the way through to some date in February, you are allowed to make transfers and trades and then cut it off like it used to be? Or do you just have a summer transfer window? That's your squad for the year. That's what you've got to deal with. I would like to see more young British players, especially English players, considering how well the World Cup went for England, play, get more game time. I would like to see the VAR actually be, given a chance and properly trialled, and the FA put more money into funding it rather than the clubs having to pay for it a little bit more. I would like to see more free-to-air football. That's not going to happen. I think some of the players are overpaid. I think the transfer market's overinflated. I'm surprised Tottenham didn't make any signings. Really surprised by Daniel Levy there. It's been an interesting transfer window in the sense that club records have been broken, but the transfer record itself hasn't. Whether that goes in January or not, or whether it goes next summer, we will have to wait and see. But honestly, I would say the first manager gets sacked by the end of September. I would say we have about the same amount of sackings as we did last year, if not more. I would say maybe 2 more sackings. The relegation battle is going to be very difficult to call. Very difficult to call. The championship battle, the winners. Will Man City repeat? I don't think they'll win as many games this coming season. Liverpool worked them out. So Jurgen Klopp worked out Guardiola last season in the Champions League and the league itself. Man City do have some deficiencies. People like to go, but they win all the time. Defensively, they are a shambles. And in goal, okay, the goalkeeper, English is not his first language. He's Brazilian, so Portuguese is his first language. He's got a mixed bag defence of various languages in front of him: English, Flemish, or French, depending on where Vincent Company, what part of Belgium he's from, and Spanish. So communication there is a bit of an issue. There's been rumblings between ex-players and Guardiola. Man City is not all roses. Just because they robbed the league title last year doesn't mean that this coming season they're going to be as good. It's called second season syndrome. Man City have never won back-to-back titles. So there you go. And to win back-to-back titles in any sport is not impossible, but it's bloody difficult. It's not as easy as what 10, 20, 30 years ago. Now it's very, very hard to be so dominant all the time, unless you play in Spain or Germany, where you can just buy all your opposition, your rivals' players. Bayern Munich. Oh look, there's a good player there. That team can't have him. We have to have him. I think some things are going to have to happen for football to be sustainable for fans and for itself. Salary cap. You have to cap salaries and wages. Agents' fees need to be capped. I think there has to be a minimum amount of native players. Some leagues do this, where they have to say you have to have a minimum amount of homegrown talent playing. A limit on overseas players, a limit on overseas players in academies. We need to start looking at why clubs are racked with debt. Because Sky Sports, when it came in '92, it was meant to improve the national side off the bat. It took '96. Okay, that was most of that squad were playing pre Sky Sports in the old Division One. Yeah, it took 26 years for England to get to a semi-final in the World Cup and 22 years to get to a semi-final in any tournament. So the Premier League has taken too long to have an effect. Germany, after 2000, were like, we have a problem here. We need to completely revamp, how we do things between the federation and clubs. And look at them now. Look how successful they have been in getting to semi-finals and finals and winning. My thoughts on the greatest of all time, it's Pele. Ronaldo, we're talking international honours here. Pele, 3 World Cups. Ronaldo, 1 European Championship. Messi, no World Cups. In fact, no international honours at all. Greatest of all time, Pele. Look at the games played, goals scored, chances created. Played most of his career for Santos in Brazil, apart from a brief period in the US, well after his prime. Youngest player to score in a World Cup final. Scored in 2 World Cup finals. And he played in. He played in the World Cup in '58. Played in '62. 66, obviously got to the quarterfinal and got hacked out the tournament by Portugal. And 1970, he played over 3 decades. Brilliant player. Ronaldo, Messi, don't even get close. Club, and even at club level, don't get close. The Champions League is an overinflated tournament, which BT Sport are ruining by only showing the Champions League and Europa League finals on YouTube, and otherwise you've got to pay from the nose for a really, really poor product that they put out. Blame the EU for that one. For me, it's Pele by a mile. Maradona for his pure skill, not necessarily his personality, is I would say second. And then you've got some other great players in there. You've got your Rivalinos and your Zicos, and you've got your Paolo Rossi's and your Dino Zoffs. And it's subjective. I wouldn't put Cristiano Ronaldo or Messi anywhere close to Pele. I'll be deadly honest. That's not to say they're not great players. They are. They are world class, but they're not the greatest of all time. Not by a long way. Apart from in 1966, Pele really didn't have that many injuries. He was a clean player. Both Messi and Ronaldo have been sent off multiple times in their careers. Pele was a graceful player. None of this arrogance and petulance that you get from Ronaldo, and none of this greediness you get from Messi, the selfishness. He really was a team player. You just got to look at the 1970 World Cup final against Italy. He scores the first goal because he makes a great run into the box. Great run into the box. You don't teach that. And he's a bullet of a header. Advertising's not stopping that. And then you got to look at the way he sets up Carlos Alberto for the fourth. Completely unselfish. You also got to look at the England-Brazil game in 1970 in the group stage, where he sets up Jorginho with a masterful bit of control and a telepathic pass. He just knows that his winger's coming on his outside. He controls it. Across it goes. You just got to look how he played the game. Messi tries to do it all on his own. Ronaldo won't let anyone else play unless your name is charisma. And to be honest, I think club level, yeah, they're brilliant. I'm not gonna lie, they're very, very good. They're also don't pay their taxes, so they're not what I call role models for kids. They like avoiding taxes and avoiding prison by cutting deals with Spanish lawyers. That's another view on it. This is where I think they're great on the field, but off the field, they're not as great role models as people think they are. And that's me being a bit cynical, but that's me being deadly honest about my thoughts on Ronaldo and Messi. Neymar, he's just a petulant child. He's not even close. Um, and for me, as a sports fan, they don't come close to Pele. I know I wasn't alive when Pele was playing, but looking at the footage of him and comparing Pele to these guys now, these prima donnas with their fake tans and their generic tribal tattoos with all these generic, they're not even close. Um, but there are some other great players who have played before Ronaldo and Messi, who, for me, if I was to do my fantasy 11, Ronaldo and Messi don't get in there. They really don't. Um, there are players that I watched in the 90s who I think are better than them, far better than them. You've got Roberto Baggio, you know, far superior player. On my fantasy 11, that's you're gonna have to wait for that. None of the players in my fantasy 11 are playing now. If honestly, if I was, to pick a team, I don't think any current professional gets into my team. And I mean, it's the same. I think the level of footballing skill has gone down. I do think they're just churning out players now. There's a lot of mercenary players who are just there for the money. I think wages are stupidly high. You can be a crap player and earn 7 million a year. That's not right. You can earn a load of money by sitting on the bench. That's no incentive for me. I would not enjoy doing that. But to these kids, a lot of them aren't the most academically gifted. I'm not saying that they're thick, but they don't do well at school because they're good at doing stuff. So they could be in a vocation, and sport for them is their vocation. They've been let down. A lot of them come from very rough areas, very deprived areas, and football for them is a way out. And they're paid too much too quick, and you just got to look at someone who've got themselves in trouble. There's a lot of them, be it drink, drugs, sex, women, fast cars. A lot of young players get thrown a lot of money very quick, and they make a lot of stupid decisions. My current favourite player, it's a goalkeeper. I don't know how you feel on that. It is a goalkeeper, and it's Guillermo Ochoa, the Mexican goalkeeper. He's mad. He's completely mad. He's the new Rene Higuita, except he's pretty good. He's not been fortunate in his club sides, but you've got to look at his save percentages. Um, I'm surprised he hasn't been snapped up by a bigger club side in Europe. Ochoa, the Mexican goalkeeper, he is a shot-stopping machine. Some of the saves he pulls off, he shouldn't pull off. It's just a shame that the Mexican team in front of him can't get past the second round, and it's a shame that at league level, at club level, he doesn't really play for the big European club. He plays for mid-table teams in Europe in the leagues that he plays in. If he was to, get that transfer, okay, he's trying to play in Belgium, I think, for Anderlecht or Standard Liège, but he has played for some really diabolical teams. But he saves a lot of shots. He is a very, very good shot stopper, and he's actually pretty elastic. And he's not the tallest goalkeeper, but he's my favourite player. Because he's the underdog. I like underdog players. I'm not a big fan of some of these superstars. I like the underdog. I like the hard worker. I much prefer seeing a box to box midfielder going back and forward all day, putting tackles in like a Scotty Parker, than watching James Rodriguez. I'd much rather watch a player who's going to put a shift in for 90 minutes and kick lumps out of the opposition. And yeah, be a bit of skill about him as well. But I'd much rather watch a dedicated team player. I get more out of it. I enjoy it more because that's what I sort of did playing rugby. I was the guy who used to run up and down the wing all day and just run all day and tackle and run and tackle and run and occasionally score a try. It's a difficult one because my fantasy 11 there's some really skilled players in there. But one thing you can say about all the players that I will choose for my fantasy 11, they all put a shift in. They weren't one of these. I'm not interested today. So Paul Pogba doesn't get anywhere near my fantasy 11. Not even like current 11 or like current playing players, the best 11 in the world. For me, he's too lazy, he's too moody, he's too selfish when he has the ball. Okay, he won a World Cup. He did a dab. Great. Annoying celebration. He's more obsessed about his hair. Unfortunately, he is exceptionally skillful, but he plays for a really negative manager in Mourinho. Mourinho is sucking the life out of some of these United stars. And I don't like Man United. I'm a Blackburn fan. Remember that. But Mourinho, I think, is past his best as a manager. His tactics are far too negative, and he's basically fighting, you know, the Manchester United board. He's biting the hand. He's doing a contact. He's complaining about transfer policy publicly, and he's outing the club. They're not going to give the money to spend if you're going to slag them off. So I think United need to get rid of Mourinho quick because it hasn't turned out to be the trophy laden spell in charge that I think the fans were expecting when Mourinho came along. That's my personal opinion on that. Overrated player, I think, is Neymar. Underrated player, God, there's so many. It's called all of Burnley's starting 11 underrated. I mean, I'm a Blackburn fan. For me to say Burnley underrated, yeah, maybe some of the Bournemouth players as well. There's a lot of underrated players, but with the transfer market being so overinflated, it's hard to know, what is an overrated underrated player. But I think Neymar is exceptionally overrated. I think Mbappe, while he was good at the World Cup, overrated. Pogba is exceptionally overrated. He's exceptionally lazy. But it's a difficult one because I like players who show a bit of passion. But unfortunately, a lot of these players tend to roll around like they've been shot, which is why I don't enjoy football as much as I used to. There's too much diving, there's too much simulation, there's too much faking it, there's too much cynicism, there's too much money, and there's too much disrespect for the officials. If those football players were to play something like ice hockey and were to disrespect an official like that, they're getting a lengthy ban. They will be cited for it, put before the disciplinary committee, and there'll be lengthy bans being dished out. You wouldn't get away with that. Same with rugby. If you were to slag off an official like football players do, they're getting a lengthy 6 to 8 to 10 week ban. Be it rugby league or rugby union, they're in a lot of trouble. Cricket, if you disrespect the umpire or go outside the code of conduct because it's an unwritten code, yeah, you're going to get a match ban or two. Football players, the way they react on the referees and the officials, the abuse they give them, the constant swearing and abuse them, and people wonder why at lower levels people aren't signing up to be officials. People are wondering why people don't want to be youth coaches. The abuse that they get from parents and the players themselves, be it at youth level growing up, is unacceptable. And you know why? Because the role models they see on the pitch do it at the top level, and they think it's acceptable to do it at youth level or amateur level or semi-pro level or the lower leagues. Because bad behaviour is not being punished; it's being rewarded by not being punished. Basically, I do. My fantasy 11, it will come eventually. I will do it. It's going to take a bit of research because I've got to get the bloody names right. That's going to be hard. You'll also be surprised with my fantasy 11. There's only, I think, 1 or 2 English players get into it. That's my view on football. There's a lot of Italian and based players in my fantasy 11 because I used to love watching Serie A when Serie A was the league. In the 90s and early 90s, Serie A was the top league in Europe. It's not now, but it was then. 20 years ago, Serie A was the league to play in. Most of the players that I picked for my fantasy 11 played in Italian football. They're not all Italian. There's a lot of non-Italians, but that's my fantasy 11 is heavily Serie A orientated. Although there's a few German-based players and there's a few Spanish-based players and French-based players, but most of it is very, very, very heavily weighted to the old Serie A. I'm not going to lie, I'm not holding anything about that, but it is what it is. If you want to look at other sports, my most popular sports on the channel are the NHL ice hockey and rugby league. They get more views than my football videos, and I sort of like that because while they do say football is like the world's biggest sport, and it is, the fact that sports that are a bit more marginal in some countries or not even played at all are getting more views on this channel says to me that a lot of people are getting turned off by what's going on with football, with FIFA's and UEFA's, and then all their corruption scandals and the governance of the game, match fixing scandals in various leagues around the world, the overplayed players, the issues within the sport itself is turning people off. And that includes subscription TV ripping the fans off, ticket prices going up, shirts, replica shirt prices being over 140 quid for a Man United shirt. Considering the people who make it get like 96p an hour. Yeah, this is what the problem is it's losing it. It's making a disconnect between the working class roots of the sport and the fan base, and the fact it's gone too far with the business side. It's gone far too far. The amount of money now and the way it's badly distributed amongst various leagues and the various clubs, and there's the haves and the have-nots, and there's certain clubs that basically buy a league for a decade, so PSG, Celtic, making leagues very uncompetitive. It puts fans off. Barcelona and Real Madrid seem to, if you play for them, you can avoid paying your taxes, and then you can cut a deal with the Spanish legal authorities to say, yeah, I'll pay a fine, and it'll be less than what I actually owe in tax, but I'll pay you a little fine to make it go away, and they don't put you to prison. If I was to fiddle my taxes like some of these football players I would get about 18 months for VAT fraud. That's basically what it is. So it's not a good image to have when players like Neymar, who are exceptionally skillful, roll around like they've been shot and they haven't even been touched. It's embarrassing. It's cringeworthy. And with the US, Canada, and Mexico getting that World Cup in, I think it's 8 years' time or whatever it is, North Americans like brutal contact sports like ice hockey and American football, and they're picking up rugby like both rugby league and rugby union like wildfire. That's not going to attract North American fans if you just brush the shoulder, they go down like a sack of shit. It's just not a good image. But that's my view on football. It's interesting because when I do my live streams, I get a lot of questions on cricket and rugby league, rugby union, ice hockey. Football is not. It's always there. But if I'm honest, it's if you watch my top 5 favorite sports video, which is up, you'll see I explain why football is so low. I explain why ice hockey and cricket and motorsport and rugby union, rugby league are so much higher. Who had the best and worst? I think Liverpool got a lot of their business done early, which was quite smart. I wouldn't say any one team had a great transfer window. Most of it was we need to have this player. I think Tottenham, have really fluffed this one. I know they signed Harry Kane long term, and a few other players signed long term contracts, and Pochettino's, got his contract, but they didn't sign any players. That's what amazes me about Tottenham. That semi-final FA Cup defeat to Man United was a warning sign that they're nearly there. And this is the problem with Tottenham. Leicester win the Premier League, Tottenham had them. They were pushed them all the way and they choked. Chelsea win the Premier League, they choked again. Man City win the Premier League, Man United win the FA, beat them in the semi-final of the FA Cup, they choked again. Tottenham have an issue with big games. That one big game a season, or 2 big games a season. And they need that 1 or 2 players in midfield or defence, maybe up front to help out Harry Kane. They need 1 or 2 pieces, and they didn't get them. I would say that'd be the worst transfer. Is Daniel Levy? I think he's made an error of judgment there. The stadium is behind schedule. That's a problem. And there's been great weather to build it in. I know it's been hot, but you could have done a lot of building work. It hasn't rained, so you can get a lot of building work done. They're still behind schedule. They're having to bend the rules for them. That's not going to sit well with a lot of football fans. That way, that Tottenham are getting more preferential treatment to play at Wembley, when other teams have been forced to share grounds or been told to get a ground share in or get their stadium, whatever. I think Tottenham may regress this season. Personal opinion. But we'll see. Transfer window itself, I think Chelsea have had an interesting one. I wouldn't say the best because they lost Courtois. And the way Chelsea ended last season went with Conte, yes, he won the FA Cup. Season before he wins the league, gets fired. Chelsea have problems. And whichever way you look at it, club records have been broken. And Chelsea have broken theirs. This new Basque goalkeeper from Bilbao, the Spanish goalkeeper, whose name I'm not going to pronounce because I will butcher it. Club transfer records have been broken. But the overall record, it may go in January. There may be that one player who really wants out, and they couldn't get him signed because the Premier League brought the transfer window forward. And maybe a Man United just go hell for leather to try and get a player from Spain or Germany or Italy. But I think Mourinho is not helping. Man United, I think, underwhelmed. All their transfer targets, they were like really interested in Yerry Mina, for example, when he goes to Everton. And then hours before he goes to Everton, he's like, yeah, we're not going to make any signings. After for days going on about it, I think United have problems, Tottenham have problems, Chelsea have problems. I think Liverpool are probably the best equipped team to challenge Man City, and Jurgen Klopp has got inside Guardiola's head, I think, last season by beating him 3 times in 4 games. I do think Liverpool have got a number on Man City. They outpress them. They're too quick for them. And they expose Man City's flaws so well, where other teams didn't. You have to run at Man City, run at them. When you get that ball on the counter, you run at them. Because here's the thing, Guardiola teams don't like defending. Never have. They've always relied on a sweeper keeper to help out a very shaky defence. And I don't see Ederson as a Manuel Neuer, but Manuel Neuer was hopeless in the World Cup. But Ederson, he's not bad, but we'll see. It's very hard to do back-to-back titles. Only in a couple of leagues can you do that, and that's generally in Spain, Germany, and Italy, where the league, and France. The other 4 big European leagues are actually very one-sided. Only 1 or 2 teams ever compete for the title in the last 10 years, which actually is really boring to watch. I like to see 4 or 5 or 6 teams really be in the mix every season. And in Spain, it's 2. In Germany, it's Bayern and whoever comes second. Italy, Napoli have been giving it a go in the last 3 years. I'm sorry. Whether they can continue with him now leaving and taking some of the best players with him, another thing. PSG have basically bought the French league for the next forever. So this is why I've gone off football to a point, because it is what it is. Too much money in it. Not enough transparency in the game. The corruption issues are not going away with FIFA, UEFA, CONCACAF, all that. Players avoiding their taxes, as I said before. It's very interesting how this live stream is turning to football, and I want it to be about all sports, but it is what it is. I mean, football is the most popular sport in the world. What I find interesting is why the Premier League brought this transfer window forward. The managers and the clubs wanted it, and then today you got Mourinho complaining to base about we're not going to get any signings done. You whinged for it for years, you get it, and now you don't want it. I don't know how long the January transfer window stays around, especially with the winter break coming in. Is the winter break going to be the transfer window? That 2 weeks off? Could that be whether the European winter transfer window goes in? Is in during the winter break, or do they get rid of it entirely? We'll see. But it is interesting. The VAR question. Back to the VAR. I could do I've done multiple. Every World Cup match that had VAR involved with a decision, I did a part of the review on that VAR, and it went on to VAR itself. And yes, 90% of the decisions it was called to make, it got right. Yes, the decisions were missed, and that is also down to the VAR officials themselves and the officials on the pitch. It's a difficult one because VAR itself is a new thing, and very few leagues around the world are actually trialing it or implementing it. More leagues will, but I am surprised it has taken this long and there's been this much resistance, especially when Sepp Blatter was in charge. Now, Sepp Blatter is a moron and a crook and should be in jail, but he's not because money reasons. VAR itself, there are a lot of good points to it. There are improvements it could make and could be made. The only way to improve it is to use it more. And the Premier League clubs, who every manager whinges, we need goal line tech or we need assistance for the referees and the assistants, we need further. But then the clubs vote against what they were whining for 20 years. It's just complete and it makes no sense. The only way to improve a system or to trial something is to trial it and give it a go. And for some reason, the FA is a hopeless organisation. The Premier League is greedy. Think how many titles, FA Cups, League Cups, relegations could have been changed with VAR. That's why they're probably dithering about it, because the amount of money involved now. We could discuss VAR to death. I think he had a decent World Cup, but yes, there were some questionable ones. But at the same time, for the most part, it worked. The issues around it are the amount of time taken. And there were those one or two games where, what is the referee doing? Why is VAR being used? Could Mark Lawrenson call it VAR one more time? I swear to God. Yeah, some of the commentators basically became American, and when amalgamation of words, that's an abbreviation, into a word, such as limo, short for limousine. But at the end of the day, like, the World Cup was, I think, one of the best tournaments I have seen. There was only one goalless game, and that was between France and Denmark in that pointless group game at the end of the group stage, which was diabolically poor, and rightly the fans were booing. Rightly so. Did VAR have an effect with more goals? Yeah, more penalties and free kicks, of course. With in the respect of with respect to more free kicks being scored, a lot of them weren't given by VAR. And I wouldn't be surprised if at the next Euros and at the next World Cup, the penalty and free kick percentages of goals goes up. It would have been nice to see more goals out of open play. But the amount of goals scored, average per game was up. And since the World Cup's been at 32 teams, that was the highest scoring World Cup ever. Second highest scoring final ever, as we said earlier in the live stream. So, honestly, there was more to like than dislike about this World Cup. Far more. But it is what it is. Some of the goals scored were world class. I wouldn't say Pavard's goal was the best of the tournament, although it was voted so by many in the media. But that was still a cracker, and that was worthy of winning any match. That goal was a bullet. I would say the most entertaining of the knockout games was Belgium Japan. Honestly, I would say France Argentina was pretty good as well. But it is what it is. I think the connect that was brought again between England as a national side and the fans is back. The trouble hooligans of all nations stayed the way, which really surprised me with the Germans and the Poles and us going to Russia. I was really, really surprised with how peaceful it went off. But at the same time, I think there was a lot of misinformation by the media. I think they really egged up the fact that there are Russian hooligans. Yes, there are British hooligans. Yes, there's German and Poles and Croatians and Serbians and hooligans from all over Europe and South America. I think they overhyped it unnecessarily because there's an agenda against Russia at the moment politically with several countries. I think in the last 10 years they were really hyping up the threat of Russian hooliganism. Since the Champions League final in Moscow in 2008, they've really been hyping up the anti-Russian rhetoric in the Western media for a long time. But no, the tournament was a great watch. It was entertaining. There was only one dull game. Um, there was always some kind of talking point, apart from France versus Denmark, the most boring game I think I'd rather watch paint dry. And bearing in mind, we've got other World Cups, to come. We've got the Cricket World Cup next year, the Rugby Union World Cup next year. We've just had the Women's Hockey, Field Hockey World Cup, which is, of course, on BT Sports. No one frigging watched it. And Ireland got to their first World Cup final in any sport. Got the Rugby League World Cup coming up in 3 years. There's a lot of big international tournaments, to come. And if they can match what we've seen in Russia in any way for entertainment value or encouraging, because we've got Japan Rugby Union World Cup in a year's time, that's going to be brilliant. We've got the Cricket World Cup here in England. That's going to be brilliant. I'm hoping the ECB finally sees sense and put it on free-to-air frigging TV, because they're greedy, and they should, because there are other bloody World Cups from free-to-air TV apart from a few bits and pieces, and they should. But the ECB, they're greedy. But if they can, especially the Rugby Union World Cup next year in Japan, if they can match what we've seen in Russia, I will be a happy man. And that's one of my more favourite sports. Rugby union is one of my favourite sports, in my top 5. If that can be of the same intensity and the amount of the enjoyment that the fans brought, and bringing people in and together, and there was no trouble, yeah, it's brilliant. I think the Russian team itself made the tournament great to watch because they overachieved. They went further than they dreamed. They were treated like heroes. And of course, they won some games rather handsomely as well, which helped. And that helped get the atmosphere going, and the belief in the fan base. It's going to be a great tournament. It is what it is. I mean, I'm interested to see what other questions we have, because it's been a lot of football dominated for the last little while. It'd be interesting to see what other kind of questions people have and thoughts people have on other sports. I think, last thing on football, I think the early transfer window closing is going to be a thing that other leagues end up doing as well. I honestly believe that the German, the Italian, the French, and Spanish leagues will also bring forward their transfer windows in line with the Premier League within the next 5 years. We just have to see how effective bringing forward this transfer window is. We do. And what effect it has on the transfer market worldwide. The managers were railing against having to do transfers after the season started, because you have the League Cup, that cup tie players, players going out on loan, can't play against, all that kind of stuff. The clubs and the managers railed and ranted for this for years. They get it, and then some of the managers, of course, had Mourinho complain. It'll be interesting to see, going forward, what happens with the winter transfer window as well. But it is what it is. I mean, this is so more to a podcast now, the occasional question. Amazing, isn't it? Obviously, the sport I wanted to watch today, or the highlights of, was the cricket. Of course, that got rained off. But hopefully tomorrow we get some play. And of course, Ben Stokes' trial is ongoing. I personally think Ben Stokes is done. I think he's going to get a sentence. I think he's going to be found guilty. It doesn't look good for him. What has been mentioned in court doesn't look good for him. It paints him as an absolute arsehole. So I think Ben Stokes, as a cricket player, his career's on the line. I think his freedom is on the line. And I think this has been a cloud over the England cricket team for 11 months that didn't need to be there. And then we have to look at the setup. Why is it when you're on international duty, you're out at 2:30 in the morning? I'm all for sportsmen being down to earth, and women, and being human, because that's what they are. Sport is their job, but they also deserve to have some downtime. But if I was to go on a work do, and I had to have meetings and meet clients, I was to do that, I'm done. I'm fired. Makes my company look really, really shit, and I would probably get suspended or sacked straight away. Seen it happen. Why does Sportsman be any different? He was very, very lucky to get selected for the Ashes, just to go on the squad. Didn't play, but he went on the squad. Didn't play. He was very lucky to play against Pakistan in the first Test series, and he was exceptionally lucky considering his trial day. I don't understand why they basically rewarded bad behaviour, saying, "Oh yeah, by the way, you've been involved in a violent assault or a fray. You've been involved in a punch up. You've been arrested. You've been charged. You've got a trial. Yeah, you can still play." I personally wouldn't have played because it also makes the curfew look a mockery if he's out 2:30 in the morning getting punch ups in nightclubs on a Friday night. It's pretty embarrassing, if I'm honest, because what does that say to young players coming through the ranks? You know, what does it say about the drink culture in cricket? It's still there. The game is more professional now than what it was 20, 30 years ago. And I have got books on cricket from, charting the history of cricket in the 70s and 80s and 90s when boozing and this kind of behaviour was a thing. Social media wasn't a thing 20, 30 years ago. It is now. Um, I think Ben Stokes is in a lot of trouble. I think what went on last September in Bristol, it's a night that will live in infamy, as they say. I think there's going to be more repercussions out of this. I think the coaching setup will be questioned about the curfew policies they have in place and the team discipline and the team culture. We've seen what's happened with Australia with the ball tampering and their team culture and how toxic that was. I wouldn't be surprised if England have a similar inquisition into their behaviour off the field as a group. And the ECB has got a lot of. Let me just move this forward a little bit because for some reason my laptop signal was shitting near my internet. But I just have to move that forward a little bit, improve the internet signal there. I wouldn't be surprised if there, depending on the trial outcome, if there is an inquisition and a demanding inquisition, because the media haven't really demanded an inquisition about the culture of the England dressing room. But when Freddie Flintoff and Steve Armisen were playing, and the Pedalo incident, there was a massive, massive, inquisition into the drink culture. There doesn't seem to be that much of a demand to tidy up, the squad and the culture behind it that there was 5, 10, 15 years ago. I don't think that's right or fair. I think, but we'll see what happens. That's something I would like to talk about more is actually Ben Stokes' trial, because interesting is talking about football and then VAR and the transfer window and best players and worst players and all that. Cricket is one of the sports I enjoy more, and I'm worried about the future of a sport that I love, the game I love, which is cricket, which is one of my favourite sports. I am very concerned about its future, both domestically and abroad. Test cricket, one day, T20, whatever it may be. This 100 format that the ECB is trying to force down our throats, which we don't want. We don't want. They're making the rules up as they go along. And then I think the chairman of the ECB saying young kids aren't interested. What planet are these people on? Because Ireland-Pakistan test match, that little test ground was packed of people of all ages, of all faiths, of all colours, watching a really close test match between a new side and a young Pakistan side, an Ireland team that haven't played at this level, even though their players have played first-class cricket. That was a brilliant 5-day test match. And the Irish did play exceptionally well against a young but talented Pakistan side, which dismantled England in 3 days in the first test of the second series that they played that summer. This is one of the reasons why I don't. I think the players are overpaid. I think the agents, there's not enough transparency. There's too many sackings of managers. The diving is nothing. Neymar really winds me up. He's such a talented player. But you could sneeze 50 yards away and he falls over. It's embarrassing. It's not a great advert to try and sell the game to North America, where a lot of the money is, and they've got the World Cup in 8 years' time, the US, Canada, and Mexico. There's a reason why the MLS hasn't, got bigger and has money issues. It's because of, the falling over, the rolling around, the diving. it doesn't attract North American fans. Because North American fans like physical contact sports. It's why they like ice hockey. It's why they like American football. It's why they've really taken up rugby, both league and union, really really well. They don't like play. I mean, it's not in their sport and culture for players to roll around faking it. As I said, if as an ice hockey fan, if you are to simulate an injury or dive or over exaggerate when a player hits you hard and you throw yourself, that player who may have committed an offence, which could be charging, boarding, high stick, whatever, yeah, he'll get his 2 to 5 minute penalty in the box. But you will also get a penalty against you, and then your team doesn't have the power play advantage. If you're not a hockey fan, it's difficult to explain. But football, a free kick's given. That's it. Yellow card or red card. In ice hockey, if you are to commit an offence of foul play, you spend 2 to 5 minutes in the penalty box. If then you have if you have like a misconduct penalty, that can be up to 10 minutes where you sit in the penalty box and you cannot help your team, which means your team's bench with your rotation of players, they're one player down. And you've got to kill a penalty with one less player on the ice, or sometimes two less players on the ice. If you are to fake it, and throw yourself and dive, you get penalised. And you're really embarrassed because it's such a physical sport. You get a reputation of being a pansy, a softie, and that's not a reputation you want in ice hockey because players will then hit you harder. And then it's not in the culture. Rugby, union or league, if you go down softly and you fake an injury, you're going to feel it in the next tackle. You're going to get thumped and thumped hard. Football players, they dive too much. Yes, the corruption is a big issue as well, and it is a concern. The players are overpaid. One of my old next door neighbours used to play for Farnborough Town, Stevenage Borough, and Northampton Town in his playing career. At the time he was playing for Farnborough and Stevenage, he was a semi-pro. He was also a Coca-Cola delivery driver. He used to go around all these little restaurants, pubs, and deliver drinks. He was a van driver as a second job. He had 2 kids and a wife to feed. The wages at the lower level are not there. At the top level, you can be a really, really crap player and get paid stupid amounts of money not to do much because the agents and the players have all the power. And the clubs, they want to put bums on seats. They don't have as much power as they used to. The players and the agents are running the game now. The wage demands, the clubs cannot afford not to give in because a richer club will come along and that player is no longer yours. That's why the big clubs are just, instead of developing their talent, they just buy it from someone else. Bayern Munich dominate German football. They see a talented player at a slightly lesser club that may not be able to afford the wage demands of a player. We'll have him. And there you go. That's why I don't particularly like teams like Chelsea and Man City. I'm very surprised with Guardiola not bringing through more young talent through the City Academy. He's buying the best players from the other clubs or players from other clubs, which is a shame because Man City has spent a lot of money on their academy. Guardiola is not promoting that many youth players. Foden, he's on the he's on the fringe of the squad. If he doesn't get the game time, I would expect him to leave. Chelsea, great youth system. Send all their players out on loan and then they sell them cheap and then have to buy them back expensively and then they sell them again. I have concerns about a lot of things in football. Ticket prices. I know you're new to the channel, but you just got to watch some of my videos and you look at some of the old live streams. And ticket price comes up a hell of a lot. Ticket price is one of the big things that comes up on many live streams as a question, or as a topic. And I've just mentioned it again. Ticket pricing. It's just going up and up and up. And the Premier League and the TV deals were designed to keep costs down while raising revenue. The TV deal they currently have and the one that they signed up to with there's still one unsold package. The clubs could still let us in for free. What has happened since '92 is the players' wages have gone up 280%, and ticket prices have gone up, I think, 190%. Real wages, haven't gone up as much. real earnings haven't gone up anywhere near as much. And actually now wages start to stagnate. There's been a decade of stagnant growth financially. It's not right. The average worker is now worse off, or about the same level as we were 10 years ago. There's been a wage deflation for the average worker. Football, it's 200 times more. It's unacceptable. It's unsustainable. And channels like BT Sport are really making it worse. The Champions League used to be shared between Sky and ITV, and everyone was happy with it. The EU say we need more competition, so BT Sport take the whole bloody thing, which is a monopoly, and their coverage is shockingly poor. It's no one watches it, and every time over the last 2 years, they put both the Europa League and Champions League finals on YouTube for free. And people are asking, "Are you, do you any?" And you look at the live stream comments, and they're like, "Why don't you show more games free to air or on streaming services like YouTube? Why?" And then the amount of people complaining about the quality of commentary, the quality of presenting. Jake Humphrey knows nothing about sport. He is just there as a presenter. He was clueless at the BBC. The BBC were lucky to get rid of him and happy to get rid of him because he was asking for a stupid amount of money for his, presenting contract. He's a duffer. And they have to borrow presenters from Sky, ITV, BBC, and Channel 4 just to make a broadcast. And you can tell those presenters are only there because their agent said, "Look, you've got this gig," and they don't want to be there because it's not their usual gig. It's not who they would normally work with. They're like, "Who are these morons?" What the production values are cheap. The studios are terrible. The rugby coverage is shockingly poor. BT Sport is a terrible media company. The only reason it survives is BT Internet, EE and BT Mobile, and landline, BT phone network. It's the only reason why it can survive. If it's a standalone company, it goes bust quicker than Setanta, and that would really screw up the TV rights package. It really will. And of course, the clubs have become far too reliant on the TV deal. Which if the Sky takeover bid between, I don't know if it's Disney and then you've got Comcast and then Rupert Murdoch and all that, if that deal collapses or any deal collapses and Sky struggles long term, football's up the shitter. And a lot of other sports are up the shitter as well because they become too reliant on the TV money. Your fans are your customers. That's what you want to attract new customers. And the best way to attract new customers is to have it readily available so more people can witness the product for cheaper. To say, okay, I want to invest in this by buying a rugby jersey or a football jersey or a cricket jersey or actually going down to a game. Because the TV viewership on subscription TV is dropping year on year. And the prices keep going up year on year to cover the loss. There are 18 million households in the UK that refuse to pay for subscription TV. Hence Free Sports, which was mentioned earlier in one of the questions, which has got the British ice hockey, EIHL, the Elite League. Premier Sports, one of the pay-per-view sports companies, realised we're not getting many viewers, but there's a lot of households that we could beam into for free. We'll set up a second channel. Oh yeah, honestly, other sports. Just honestly, check out my playlist, mate. Honestly, check them out. I've got playlists. If you go on the channel homepage, you'll see all my playlists. You'll be surprised on the sports I talk about. I've got my live streams in a playlist as well, so you can see some of the topics that have been discussed since I think my first live stream March, April, so 4 or 5 months ago. It's just check out, check out some of my old live streams. Check out the other playlists. Some of my videos go on for like 20 minutes. Some go on for like 5. I aim to keep a video between 5 and 10 minutes if I can. Some of them, which are a bit more in depth, I do go on a bit longer because there's more to discuss, and that's normally a fan request on a history of a team or a history of a league or a player or a sport in general, like the issues with a sport or an incident in a sport, like a scandal, which requires a bit more research. and a bit more in-depth discussion, and hence why the whiteboard was bought, and hence why I got the laptop stand so I could talk using this. But yeah, there will be more videos to come. Yeah, my Fantasy 11 will be coming, but that's a lot of research, and that will be a lengthier video. And there'll be more to discuss about why I've chosen a goalkeeper, a left back, a right back, a centre back pairing. Why I'd have a four. I'm going to do it in a 4-4-2 kind of formation because it makes it a bit easier. You just have 4 in the midfield, 4 at the back, 2 up front, and then you can obviously make your variations on the 4-4-2 with a 4-5-1 or a diamond or a 4-3-3. You can squiggle it around, but a 4-4-2 is basically how you would get your standard formation and then you work around by tweaking it. But yeah, no, please feel free to look at any of my other playlists with all the sports on. Look on my most popular videos. They're not football. I think there's 1 or 2 football ones that get in there in the thousands, but most of my popular videos are rugby league and ice hockey. And that says something to me about how people view sport right now. I think the World Cup has helped football's image to a point. Neymar hasn't. VAR a little bit. The French winning, I wouldn't say that was the best result for the World Cup, but at least it wasn't Brazil. But no, it's interesting that you are primarily a football fan. But honestly, just check out my playlists. We discuss all sorts, and you'll see in a lot of the comment sections of what people put down and what they ask and how they appreciate what I do. What I talk about. But no, feel free to watch any of the other videos, and you can disagree with some of the things that I say, and you can say, "No, I don't agree with that. I think this player's better or that player's better." But when it comes to the greatest of all time debate, as you mentioned earlier, I still think it's Pele. I don't understand why people right now are going Ronaldo, Messi, and Neymar. These 3 players, none of them did well in the World Cup. Ronaldo's the only player to actually have an international honour to his name. I think Neymar might have won Olympic gold, maybe a Confederations Cup, but in all told, really, Pele by a country mile, if not quite a few miles ahead of the rest of those 3. Not a prima donna, not an arrogant so and so. He wasn't selfish. He was the ultimate team player, even though he was number 10. He could come a bit deeper into midfield and link up with other players. That's why it's a waste of time for me. But no, are there any other questions? Because, we've been going now for what, an hour and a half. Most of it's been about football tonight, which I don't mind talking about football, but there's some other big sports stories going on. The Tour de France, Chris Froome didn't win, which is kind of a good and a bad thing because it's still Team Sky and there's still a lot of questions that Team Sky have to answer. And that opinion of mine has been very divisive. Honestly, we will find out about Chris Froome after he's retired. Someone is going to say something about, there is some masking agents involved or something, whatever. But I think the way the fans reacted, okay, the fans have had enough with cycling and doping. At the moment, the way the media is portraying Team Sky doesn't help their cause. But at the same time, their press releases, their interviews don't help their cause either. That's something that we didn't talk about tonight a lot, was the Tour de France. It's happened since I last did my last live stream. I covered a few of the stages because I watched some of the stages in full. I didn't get to watch all of the Tour de France because of work and other commitments. But the stuff I did watch, it was interesting. I didn't watch as much of it this year as I did last year, but it was an interesting Tour de France this year. Geraint Thomas winning, partly because Vincenzo Nibali was flattened by a photographer at the side of the road and badly injured. And there's concerns about how close the fans actually get to the cyclists, especially on mountain stages or more rural stages where, there's not those barriers in between. We could look at the fact that, Van Avermaet held the yellow jersey for quite a few days at the beginning of the Tour. Richie Porte, again, doesn't finish the Tour de France. I think the 3rd in a row he's got badly hurt on stage 7, I think. He doesn't get through the first week. The cobble chaos, as I call it, with so many accidents involving some of the big favourites, including Chris Froome. It was I felt the first week was far better than some of the later weeks. I felt that, could have been, they could have done the stages a bit differently. I think some of the stages were very short, some were very long. I think they should have cobbles in the Tour de France more often because it really does shake it up. And I think a lot of the general classification riders don't take cobbles seriously. They don't. They see it as an old-fashioned form of the sport that should die out. The one-day classics are brilliant. I prefer watching them tonight. Obviously, in the NHL, there's another something else we haven't talked about tonight. Before we go, Eric Carlson still hasn't signed a contract with Ottawa. He still hasn't moved. And there's 2 months to go before the season starts. That's going to be an interesting August and September with Eric Carlson. He could fit into any of the other 30 sides in the NHL. Ottawa are in a real situation. He could fit into any one of those teams. Piece of piss. And make them better. Be it by a trade or they just pick him up and offer him a contract. He could fit into any one of the 30 rivals, the Ottawa Senators in the NHL, which is the terrifying thought. That's something that I did a lot of videos on. So if you're an ice hockey fan and you've been following the Eric Carlson saga since this time last year, that is an interesting topic. And then you've got, John Tavares went to the Toronto Maple Leafs. That dragged on longer than it should have. That could have quite easily been done well before, free agents deadline day. They could have done that far quicker. Literally, as soon as the pre-season or the off-season started, they could have done that deal really quickly. That was dragged out. I think the agents have dragged that out, and both teams dragged that out unnecessarily. But there are a lot of other sports. I mean, tonight's live stream has been dominated by football, and of course, the Premier League season kicks off tomorrow or tonight. I'm not quite sure. Is it tonight or tomorrow? Man United kicked the Premier League season off. That's going to be interesting. Mourinho's comments about transfers are interesting, but you normally hear them from managers who are under a lot of pressure. And I do think, much like Conte at Chelsea, biting the hand that feeds you is not a good idea. It generally leads to you not being in a job very long. If you're openly criticising your employers, you have those conversations behind closed doors. Joanna Conte beating Serena Williams in 12 games, or 13 games or something, 6-1, 6-love, recent tennis tournament. That's insane. Yeah. Bit of a tasty one. Wimbledon itself was a decent tournament this year. Very, very decent. Andy Murray is a big talking point. How is he going to do long term? Is he going to be able to compete for a major ever again in one of the big four opens? Is his career being threatened? Is he really rapidly declining because of that hip injury? Nick Gers. Who the hell is Nick Gers? Not a clue. I haven't a clue who Nick Gers is. We're a sports channel. Not a clue who Nick Gers is. Hello? Evening? Oh, got a message from someone. Who the hell's messaged me? Welcome to the live stream, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, we have the first troll of the evening. You may ask a question, Mr. Russo. You may ask. Ask away. Ah, well, of course, we had to have the idiots turn up right at the end. Well, really great, a live stream like that. Cheers, guys. Really appreciate charge antics. You see that kind of oh dear. Yeah, you got a funny name, haven't you? Yep, you think you're funny. Unbelievable. Oh dear. Well, of course it's a Friday night. Oh, it's Thursday night, isn't it? Unbelievable. Right, well, you, my friend, you have just been done. Bye bye. And you've just got yourself. Bye bye. And who else? Anyone else going to be a dick? Anyone else? You guys all done? Well, now that these morons have ruined the live stream, great fun, isn't it? So on that note, I'm going to call it a night because there's always some morons who have to ruin it, obviously, because they think they're funny. But there we go. Nice bullies are the ones who normally fiddled by their uncle anyway. So, and look, they've gone. Ah. So yeah, I'm going to call that an end to the live stream because these sad individuals who just have better to do with their evening than ruin someone's hard work because their parents must be so proud of their trolls of kids. Oh yeah, I ruined it, but there we go. Is what it is. So thanks very much for watching. Of course, the last 6 minutes have been ruined by 3 idiots. There's that. Is what it is, really, isn't it? So I'm going to leave that there. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, place your comments below. Obviously, if you've seen it, I'll have some more videos for you soon.